Sarah Paulson stars in Ratched as the titular Nurse Ratched. I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby here with Sarah. And I want to go back to the beginning when this show and this role was first being pitched to you. What did you have in mind for what you thought the show was going to look like and how you're going to play her compared to what we actually end up seeing on screen?
Oh God, Kevin, do you
Hmm,
have an hour or two? And does
I
anybody
got
watch?
20 minutes.
I don't devote that much time to it either. The sort of truncated version, I believe, is that I knew this script was floating around because my agent called and asked if Ryan had reached out to me about it, which he had not. And then I called him in sort of a huff to sort of say, well, what gives, man? Like you've got this script about this sort of famous, iconic character, and I guess you're giving it to the magnificent Kate Winslet. I don't know what's the plan. And he said, no, it's just. I think he really believed the show would never get made. There were so many people to deal with in terms of rights. You know, there's the book, there's the movie, there's all the people involved, and I think he wasn't confident it was going to get made. So I think he was waiting until it became clear that there was real interest in it. So he says before he brought it to me. But he said, I'll let you read it and then you tell me if you really want to do it. Because the truth of the matter is, I have been very spoiled with him in a myriad of ways. But, you know, I've always so loved this experience of playing a different character every year on Horror Story or doing something on Crime Story. And then that's the end of that capsule. Um, and I've never been on a show that's lasted more than a season in terms of an ongoing series, maybe a season and a half, on Jack and Jill, which I did literally 100 years ago. So I have no experience of suspended time with a character except for the ones I've revisited on American Horror Story. But I'd never played someone for more than a 6 month pop. Although right now I've been playing Linda Tripp since November, so that's its own that's its own other um, barrel of whatever one says, barrel of what? I don't
Monkeys.
know. Monkeys? Sure. I don't know. Is that something we're allowed to say? I don't know.
I
Barrel of
don't know.
monkeys, barrel of shrimp. I don't know. So I think at the end of the day, I read a script that was a spec script that Evan Romansky wrote that was, I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't think so, that it was a sort of, as spec scripts are, it wasn't necessarily a series, it wasn't necessarily a movie. But it was this great idea to explore this character that is so indelible in all of our minds because of Louise Fletcher's brilliant performance and how little of her backstory we get in the movie. And because her performance is so brilliant, it just leaves you kind of, at least me anyway, wanting to know what her deal was because she was certainly a complicated, mysterious cat. So, but in terms of what I thought it was going to be versus what it is, anytime you do the dance with Ryan Murphy, um, you don't know exactly tone wise, visually, exactly what it's going to be because it all sort of dances around in his head. And then by and large, when you see it, you sort of think, holy, holy. I mean, I remember when he showed me the title sequence for this show, and I was like,
Oh,
what did you do? And he had it shot somewhere in Europe and hired this, and I just was like, and I became very excited, obviously, about it. And I was terrified. Who wants to take on, what moron wants to take on a role played by, a great actress who was, won an Oscar for the performance? And you think, yeah, I'll take a crack at that. I mean, that's just some kind of dope on a rope. But that apparently is me. It's apparently this guy.
fair enough.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, like you said, it's not like her backstory is really that fleshed out in the film that we could understand like where her motivations are, where she's coming from. So what did you actually find was the key to understanding Mildred Ratched as a person, setting aside all the baggage of, because
Yeah.
she's like on the AFI top 100, like most iconic villains, that sort of thing. Like it has such a pejorative meaning when you say Nurse Ratched about
Totally.
somebody. How
Yeah.
do you set that aside?
I I had a little bit of time with the movie where I sort of rewatched it more
Mhm.
than once. First, sort of afraid to do so because I thought, oh God, I'm just going to see what she does and I'm going to rethink my thinking about doing this at all. But what I found was that it was very interesting to me that we put her on. I think AFI should have check-in about maybe how this needs to be rectified, because truly Mildred Ratched, even in the movie, is really a product of her time and of her circumstance. And, she's working in a male dominated field in a hospital surrounded by only men, where she has, as a woman, a position of power in that ward and amongst those patients. And I think what it really does is challenge our assessment of womanhood in movies and in film. And what we expect and what we desire as audience members and as human beings is probably to see the mother as a matriarchal, soft bosomed place to rest our head and to be nurtured and cared for only. And her methodology, probably taught to her by the men who run that ward, was something that she probably didn't think to challenge, probably because as a woman in that time period, it was not the thing to do. And, not every person is an activist by nature. And I don't think Mildred was a person who would question that kind of authority. So when I rewatched the movie, I thought, oh, she's villainous to us because we fall so deeply in love with all of those characters, and we love them all, and we love their relationship to one another. And she is essentially the roadblock to a lot of their, what we would perceive, their fun, their camaraderie. She sort of stops all that from happening. So we assign her this, evil stepmother role, which I think she's actually acting from a place of what she believes is the healthy best care to give them. So for me, when I decided to do it, and what was very clear early on was Mildred in our story was essentially looking to rectify a relationship she felt had gone terribly wrong with her brother, where she felt she had left him and abandoned him in a moment of his greatest need, after he and I had undergone and been subjected to horrendous abuse, and she sort of left him. Because as a young girl, she wanted to save herself and has lived with that guilt for the rest of her life and is trying desperately to make it right. So that was sort of my way in, was actually how large her heart was, and how blind she would choose to become in order to ameliorate her feelings of guilt about having left him. And I think we can all kind of relate, although Mildred's goes to very, it goes to extremes. She is motivated by a desire to make things right and to be reunited with the only person that she's ever loved. So that is something I could get behind, and that is something I could understand. And I think we've all found ourselves incapable of seeing what's in front of us sometimes because of whatever our desire, whatever our need is. So that's how I found my way in there,
Yeah.
without having to worry about the other stuff too much.
Right. Well, I would say that there's also a level of subtlety in your performance that I took note of. And I'm wondering if you can recall a specific aspect of how you chose to play her that maybe the average audience member might not pick up on right away, but that you found important, either in terms of how she carries herself, how she sizes up another person, the volume, how she speaks, that kind of thing.
Well, I did think a little bit about Louise Fletcher. I thought about the way she stood. I thought about her comportment. I thought about the sort of attempt at pleasantness and neutrality that she often had. And I thought, how does a person become that efficient at doing that and not allow any of her emotion to seep through? And I thought, what if younger Mildred, or Mildred prior to this time in this hospital, wasn't as good at it and hadn't yet arrived at that place where she could shut it all down? And that where things would leak out of the cracks and where the facade would there would be fissures. And I thought that would be sort of interesting to explore. And of course, I did think one of the bravest things about Louise Fletcher's performance was her commitment to her stillness. And I thought that was something that makes you as an audience member kind of lean in and wonder, what is she thinking? And I thought, I'm gonna steal that because because I think that works, and I think with our story as well. I certainly as an actor, sometimes what you're desperate for is to leave everything on the floor, and audiences can they don't have to do a lot of work then because it's all just out there for them. They know what you want them to feel, and I thought, this is a person who is a mystery unto herself a little bit. She doesn't understand herself fully. she's sort of underdeveloped. She's had no real love story in her life other than the love she feels for her brother, and has been alone a lot, and that would kind of calcify certain ways in which a person might behave. And so I did try to keep an exercise for me in restraint. I'm much goofier in person. I am much I'm a bit of a goon. I'm a little spastic, if that's a word. I don't think that's a good word to use, is it?
Mm. Yeah,
So we
there
can
are
go.
better words, maybe.
Yeah.
I
Maybe we don't. Maybe we can take that away. I don't know. We can't
don't
edit
know.
it. I don't know. I guess I said it. Now,
Unedited, unfiltered.
yeah. Now I'm gonna go to jail. I guess I'm more. I just, as a person, am a little bit less restrained, and
Right.
so it was an exercise for me to try to rein in some of my
Yeah.
um, natural instinct towards letting it all hang out.
Gotcha. Well, something that I actually remember from a few years ago, you said in an interview, was just how much you learned from Jessica Lange after working with her on American Horror Story. And I really almost see some of that in your performance on this show in terms of also just the morally gray area that you're playing in. And I'm
Mhm.
wondering now, having worked with, other great actresses like Judy Davis, Cynthia Nixon, Sophie Okonedo, Sharon Stone, if you
Yeah, Amanda
yeah,
Plummer. Yeah.
right. If you internalize any of their styles and their processes, and maybe if any of that had an impact on you.
Oh God, I would like to imagine that part of the glory of getting to act and being lucky enough to work, period, but being lucky enough to work with actors of the caliber, all of whom you just mentioned, is, I mean, I make a joke often about like stealing as much as I can from all of them, but more uh, emotionally, I like to imagine that there are imprints made with, from every person you come in contact with, and certainly people you're spending months with, bringing a whole other universe forward. The Judy Davis thing for me was wildly special because she's one of my favorite actresses, and it was very hard for me to remain cool. I was exceedingly uncool around Judy Davis, and it was sort of embarrassing. I picked her up once, like lifted her off the ground. I was so excited to see her, and let's maybe say that wasn't like the greatest thing that I could have done because like it's Judy Davis. Like put her down. You don't
Put her
need to
down.
pick her up. But she's such a kind person. She didn't really make me feel too badly about it. But I don't think I could ever. Boy, I wish I could do everything Judy Davis can do, and I can't do any of it. And it's what's so special about it. And Sophie. Sophie is an actress that I think is uh, just gifted beyond compare. She and I had a wonderful time working together. We had a very hard time keeping straight face. We found each other to be delightfully funny, and maybe it's because we were in sort of extreme situations. But we were often looking at, I would look over to her left or right temple so that I could not look her in the eye because I would just ruin take after take, and she would as well. And it's one of those things where I could talk about it all day, and there'd be no way for me to explain why. I'm sure you have a friend where no matter what
Oh,
happens,
yeah.
if you're in certain circumstances, just you're not going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's one of those people. And Sharon gave me the most wonderful advice and was just like such a sister to me. And Cynthia, who I've admired forever and who I've known from New York. And Amanda Plummer and I shared a dressing room back in 1998, doing a play in New York City in downtown New York. And it just was a very special thing for me. And every single day I thought, wow, I can't believe that I get to do this. And that little girl who dreamt about doing these kinds of things for my whole life, just it was every day was kind of a pinch me moment. And then I would go pick Judy Davis up and ruin it all because
Yeah.
I'm me
Went,
and I see
went
I
just
see
a little too far.
just a little too far. And
Yeah.
forget her face with sort of tight smile, and I couldn't pick her up very far off the ground. I'm not very strong, but I did
Right.
I did I
Gotcha.
did feet were not on the ground, I can tell you that
I actually wanted to focus a little on the Cynthia side too, because that Mildred and Gwendolyn relationship, I think, has really been something special for the fans of the show. I actually talked to Cynthia a few weeks ago. She was talking about how, the fact that, it's two queer women that are playing these characters, that makes it even more resonant. Did you find that that to be resonant for you as well on set, and the two of you getting to play, women falling in love on screen?
Well, I think as I mentioned, Cynthia is an actress that I admired as a young actress in New York, and somebody whose career I just found so special, and the lore of her theater story of her doing Hurly Burly and The Real Thing at the same time and running back and forth. I mean, it was just it's the stuff of legend. And she and I had a really, really special thing going. And it wasn't something we had to talk about a lot in terms of um, how cognizant we were of the potency of what we got to do because of who we both are. And in terms of the lives we lead, and us both being queer women, and the power of that for audiences, queer audiences in particular, and also, you know, audiences, this whole, it's a complicated topic, because I want so much for it to remain special to people who don't see enough of these relationships depicted. And I also want it to be universally understood and accepted too, so that it doesn't have to be put into some kind of box. It's not just a queer love story, it's a love story, period. But it was a very powerful thing to be a part of with her, and we would talk about it sometimes, but other times we just could look in each other's eyes and sort of silently acknowledge the specialness of it. It was not lost on either one of us. It's the thing I'm probably most looking forward to delving back into, because I can't wait to see where they are and what's happened to them, and I look forward to that.
Yeah, well, you kind of just stole my next question there, which is that we're coming back for a second season, and like you said, you don't typically play a character from season to season, so somewhat new territory for you. I'm wondering what other things you are excited about exploring in season two, and just the future of the show in general.
Well, I just can't wait to find out when we're going to start. As I said, I've been doing the other thing for so long now. It's sort of like, am I ever going to be doing anything other than the thing I'm currently doing? Um, and I have no idea when we're going to do it. I just know we're doing it. So let's hope I'm not 62 by the time that happens. Just Ryan has so many things he's doing. I don't know how anybody will find the time. But the way we end the show, we know that my brother is coming after me, and I vowed to come after him, which would obviously be an enormous shift and sea change for Mildred. Who is I'm interested in sort of seeing who Mildred is without that sort of beating heart, which she has spent so much time sort of hiding from herself and from others, that has been about Edmund. And if Edmund is going to reveal himself to be a different person than she thought he was, what will that how will that change Mildred? Will that further solidify her loneliness? Will it harden her? Where will Nurse Bucket be? What will that be like? It's all very interesting, and I do know that we will be jumping. It's not really a jump because we end the show in the 50s, but we will be in that world, and perhaps even a few years down the road into the 50s. I'm not quite sure. He's had a couple of ideas that he's sprinkled in my ear, and I don't hold on to any of them, because a month later he'll be like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. We're doing this. Okay. Okay. Glad I got excited about that thing that's now not happening.
Well, now you'll be in the 50s in the kind of world of like what you did in Carol.
Yes, exactly.
So
Which,
that's kind of nice.
who doesn't want to be in the world of Carol?
Exactly.
I'd
Stumble
like
upon Kate Blanchett,
to stumble upon Kate Blanchett. There's Rooney, and they're living a happy life. And where's Abby? What's she doing?
What?
She
Yeah,
just
I want to know her story.
We'd like to know. We're
Yep.
lobbying for Carol too, but it's just called Abby.
Yeah, let's manifest this.
Let's
I love
do
it.
it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Well, we're already out of time, but
What happened?
but for those of you watching, subscribe for more interviews and go to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions. Sarah, such a pleasure talking to you today. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much. I appreciate it, Kevin.